This is a film report of a visit to the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, made by the Agricultural Economics Delegation of the United States Department of Agriculture. The trip was limited to the heart of Russian agriculture and includes a record of current developments in the diversified crop area of the North Caucasus. The Ukraine, with its wheat, grain, livestock, and sunflowers. The Crimea, with its specialized fruit crops. The Asiatic regions of Uzbekistan, land of irrigated cotton. Kazakhstan, with its vast areas of spring wheat. The new lands of West Siberia, where low-yield wheat now grows. And finally, to the poultry and cattle farms in the northwest region near Leningrad. Following our arrival at the airport, we met at the Ministry of Agriculture building for conferences before starting a month-long, 12,000-mile trip to farms, research stations, and other agricultural enterprises in 10 major farming regions of the USSR. But before starting our working trip, like any tourists, we saw the sights of Moscow. The renowned Bolshoi Theater, once the Imperial Opera House, and still the seat of Soviet opera and ballet, was one of the highlights. And of course, the brick walls of the Kremlin, a must on every sightseer's list. Across the wide open space of Red Square is colorful and impressive St. Basil's Cathedral, started in 1654 by Ivan the Terrible and completed 125 years later. Then, off for our first look at agriculture, Soviet style. To help get a general view, we traveled through the Ukraine. Here, Soviet agriculture is the most diversified and most productive. In terms of land area and labor, the farms are huge. Both of these characteristics were especially predominant in the wheat-growing sections. In the wheat areas, we noted extreme contrasts. Mechanization is well along. Tractor-drawn combines do the heavy work. These crawler tractors were 54 horsepower models, and the combines cut a 16-foot swath. Manned by a crew of 5, the rigs were reminiscent of those seen in the United States during the 20s. But in the handling of grain after harvest, we found a great deal of hand labor and only limited mechanical equipment. Women traditionally have done a large part of the work on the farms. We were told that about 60% of the workers in agriculture were women. We also noted a lack of adequate storage facilities. On-farm storage is extremely limited and is largely flat warehouse or shed type. Even at the central storage points, facilities are limited. Many of the warehouses, even the new ones, are of the horizontal type. Portable electric blowers were used in many places to aerate the grain. Much of the machinery for handling the grain is inadequate. Although we did see some vertical or elevated facilities, the overall storage picture was not good, especially during periods of heavy grain movements from the farms. Near Krasnodar in the Kuban, the Soviets' best agricultural producing area, we visited the Scientific Research Institute for Oilseed Crops. Remarkable progress has been made in breeding disease-free, high-yielding varieties of sunflowers. Today, sunflowers furnish 60% of the edible oil supply, but increases are planned for other oil crops. Castor beans, for example, will increase in importance since the Soviets have recently made progress in the mechanization of this crop. Experiments are also being conducted with such oil crops as peanuts, sesame, poppies, and others. Since grazing is not so widely practiced as it is in the United States, and livestock feed production is relatively undeveloped, the Soviets are also seeking ways to increase their forage crops. One way has been to grow corn in northern areas where the season is too short to produce grain. Here in western Siberia, near Novosibirsk, at the Scientific Research Institute for Grain Crop Production, corn is being grown in combination with other forage crops, such as lupin and soybeans. This work is very important to Soviet plans for increased milk and meat production. Production of livestock in the Soviet Union has not attained as high a place as grain production. The average Russian consumes only about 1/3 as much meat as does the average American. Research effort is being devoted to livestock in an attempt to lift their output of meat and milk. Among the livestock enterprises, dairying is furthest advanced. There are no cattle of the clearly beef type. However, some milk cattle of dual-purpose type, such as the Simmenthal or Swiss Cross, do provide reasonably beefy steers and heifers for slaughter. In addition, the breed maintains a good milk production record. These Simmenthal bulls were seen at the Kiev Livestock Experiment Station, which also serves as an artificial insemination center for farms in the Ukraine. At the same station, we were shown experimental calf housing, part of the Soviet research program on early weaning of calves. Livestock on both collective and state farms are held in large-scale units. Most barns have a capacity of 100 to 200 cows. The barns themselves are most frequently overbuilt and are generally the most substantial and costly farm buildings. As on most farms, the dairy cows are kept in barns the year round, and feed is cut in the fields and brought to the cows. Everywhere we traveled, we saw posters and signs extolling the virtues of the Soviet system, as well as signs urging increased production. In many cases, direct reference was made to American agriculture production. In the Soviet Union, production records of the United States are held up as goals to be attained. Hog houses in the Soviet Union are usually shed or gable roof structures. However, we did see some rather elaborate feeding houses. These were circular with high ceilings and held from 400 to 600 feeder hogs. Most are large white or white checkered breeds. Fat, heavy types have predominated. But like the United States, emphasis is now shifting to meat-type animals. Poultry production is not far advanced in the Soviet Union. Only a few farms, such as this one at Adler on the Black Sea, are experimenting with new ideas. This particular farm is far ahead in respect to economy of buildings and labor. Here we were told the laying rate averages 186 eggs per hen per year. Perhaps that is why this white Russian rooster is crowing. In general, much labor is required for production, even on the large farms like the Bolshevik State Farm near Leningrad. One of the largest poultry farms in the USSR, this farm supplies poultry and eggs for the Leningrad area. Although chickens predominate, ducks and geese are grown in larger numbers than in the United States. In addition, large numbers of guinea fowl are raised. In the Soviet Union, as in the United States, this fowl is considered a delicacy. To see how the Soviets were progressing with other farm commodities, we visited the Uzbek Republic in South Central Asia. Here, more than 2/3 of the Soviet cotton is grown. Overall, about 5 million acres are devoted to this crop in the USSR, and since all cotton is grown under irrigation, planned increases must await new irrigation development. The cotton is heavily fertilized, and most of the cultural operations are mechanized. In 1957, the yield was reported as averaging about 1,800 pounds of seed cotton per acre. Of the mechanical pickers we saw, the vertical spindle type was the most common. However, it should be noted that most of the cotton is hand harvested. In Uzbekistan, we also had occasion to visit the cooperative market at Tashkent, capital of this Asian republic. Here, nearby collective farms can sell perishables in excess of delivery quotas. Produce from individual allotments is also sold here. Such cooperative markets handle much of the fruits and vegetables, and a large part of livestock products sold in the Soviet Union. Almost any commodity may be purchased here, anything from a loaf of bread to a bundle of firewood. Usually 2 or more villages are included within the boundaries of each collective or state farm. The farms we visited contain from 170 to as many as 2,000 households. One collective farm had 1,793 households containing 2,542 able-bodied workers. On this farm, each household was allotted an acre of ground, 1 milk cow, 2 hogs, 2 sheep, and some poultry. The houses in the plains of the Black Sea area and in South Central Asia are usually modest 4-room structures of stuccoed adobe brick with thatched roofs. However, in the timbered areas of the north, the houses are most often built of logs. We saw signs in many places urging the people to meet housing goals, and we observed evidences of activity in this field. An important part of every farm, whether collective or state, is the headquarters building. Oftentimes, the same structures serve as houses of culture. They are used for meetings and for entertainment of the people in the villages. From here, management of the farm directs the worker brigades, much as would management of a large factory. Although salaries, bonuses, and shares in the collective income are the main sources of incentive on Soviet farms, special inducements for achieving clearly specified goals are sometimes offered. A trip to the all-union agricultural and industrial exhibit in Moscow is one of these prizes. Here, the very best in Soviet agriculture is put on display. In addition to being an educated showcase for its own people, the Soviet exhibit also serves very well as a centerpiece to impress visiting delegations from other nations. Multilingual signs make it easy for the non-Russian to get the message. Visitors to the exhibit are treated to displays of fine Soviet livestock. Plots of major crops are available for close inspection. And of course, since the Soviets pride themselves on having made great strides in farm mechanization, the machinery exhibit is one of the highlights. In this area, the Soviets can do some bragging. Since the end of World War II, which caused much damage to farm equipment, the Soviets have made rapid progress. Since 1950, tractors on farms increased 53%, trucks 123%, and combines 87%. However, compared to the United States, Soviet farm machinery is cumbersome and not as adaptable, and in spite of recent increases, is not as numerous. Because the Moscow exhibit serves as the showcase for the entire Soviet Union, no expense has been spared to make it as impressive as possible. Each republic has its own pavilion, styled in its native architecture, in which to display its products. The USSR is putting great emphasis on improving its agriculture. It is making real progress, but the natural advantage of rich soil is seriously offset by limited rainfall and a short growing season. Agriculture is more in the public eye in the Soviet Union than in the United States. We take it for granted. But to the Russians, this exhibition helps to keep it uppermost in their minds. Achievements can be expected, yet it is unlikely that Russia can ever equal the USA in agricultural production.